Sam rode through the vast open plains of the American West, feeling the dust beneath his boots and the wind in his face. He had spent years working the land, his life marked by the rhythm of the seasons and the unspoken bond he shared with his horse. The solitary existence of a cowboy was all he had ever known. Yet there was a sense of quiet satisfaction in his heart, the kind of satisfaction that came with knowing the land and its endless possibilities. One afternoon, as he made his way across the dry desert, he spotted something out of place. It wasn't the usual tumbleweed or cactus he'd seen 1,000 times before. Instead, it was a vibrant flower, standing tall and strong in the middle of the barren landscape. Its bright petals seemed almost unreal against the dusty brown surroundings, like a patch of color meant just for him. Curiosity piqued, Sam rode closer and dismounted. He knelt down beside the flower, admiring its delicate beauty. He knew little about the wildflowers of the land, but he could tell this one was special. Without thinking too much about it, he reached out and plucked the flower from its stem. It felt like a small victory, an unexpected treasure in a place where few things ever seemed to bloom. As he tucked the flower into his coat, Sam felt a sense of contentment. It wasn't much, but it was something different, something out of the ordinary. He thought it would look nice in his camp that night, adding a touch of beauty to the rugged surroundings. He mounted his horse again, the flower safely tucked away, and continued on his journey. However, as Sam rode away, he didn't notice the eyes that had been watching him from the distance. Lila, the Apache girl, had been following him for some time. She had seen him before, a lone cowboy passing through their land, but today felt different. Today she had witnessed something that had stirred something deep within her. Lila was not like most girls in her tribe. She had always been strong and independent, learning the ways of her people from a young age. Her connection to the land was undeniable, and she had a deep understanding of its rhythms. She knew that every plant, every rock, and every river had a purpose. So when she saw Sam pluck the flower, her heart sank. She had known that flower for years. It was sacred to her people, a symbol of love and respect. In her tribe, it was not just a flower. It was a symbol of a proposal. Lila's heart beat faster as she realized what had just happened. The flower that Sam had so casually taken was meant to be a message, a sign that she was ready for something deeper. But now, Sam had taken it without understanding its true meaning. She wasn't angry, but there was a strange feeling inside her, a mixture of confusion and uncertainty. What did it mean that he had taken the flower without knowing? For a long moment, Lila stayed where she was, watching Sam as he rode away. She felt torn. The flower had always been a part of her tribe's customs, but this cowboy didn't know that. He hadn't understood what he had just taken, and yet, it felt as though something important had shifted. Should she confront him? Should she go after him and explain? Or should she let it go and see where things would lead? The sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the land. Lila's thoughts were racing, but she knew she couldn't make a decision just yet. She would follow him, she decided. She would watch from a distance and see what happened. Maybe, just maybe, he would return the flower. Or maybe he would not even realize what he had done. Either way, she needed time to think. Meanwhile, Sam continued on his journey, unaware of the weight of the flower tucked into his coat. As the evening sky darkened and the stars began to appear, Sam set up camp. He gathered wood for a fire and unpacked his meager belongings. The air was cooler now, and the silence of the desert was comforting. Sam often found peace in the stillness of the night, away from the noise of the world. As he sat down by the fire, Sam took the flower out of his coat and examined it more closely. He had almost forgotten about it. It was beautiful, delicate, and unlike anything he had seen before. He gently placed it on the ground beside him, thinking it might brighten the spot where he was sitting. The fire crackled and the flames cast long shadows across the desert floor. He didn't know why, but for some reason, he found himself thinking about the girl he had seen earlier, the Apache girl who had watched him from a distance. He had seen her before, but they had never spoken. There was something about her, though, that intrigued him. She was different from the other people he had met in his travels. There was a strength in her eyes, a quiet power that seemed to radiate from her. He couldn't quite place it, but something about her presence had left an impression on him. As Sam stared into the fire, his thoughts drifted back to the flower. What did it mean? Why had he been so drawn to it? And why had the girl been watching him so intently? He shook his head, dismissing the thoughts as nothing more than the mind of a lonely cowboy trying to make sense of the world around him. But deep down he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to it than he realized. The night passed quietly, with only the sound of the wind and the crackling fire breaking the silence. Sam fell asleep under the stars, the flower still beside him, unaware of its significance. Meanwhile, Lila lay awake in her small camp, staring at the moon. Her thoughts were tangled with the cowboy and the flower. What was she supposed to do now? She had given him the flower, but she had no way of knowing if he would ever understand its true meaning. She didn't even know if he would return. What if he never knew the significance of the gesture? What if he simply moved on, leaving her and her traditions behind? But despite the uncertainty, Lila also felt something else, something more powerful. A small spark of hope that perhaps this cowboy, this stranger from another world, might be the one who could bridge the gap between their two cultures. She could feel it in her heart, the quiet certainty that her path had crossed his for a reason. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. Things were about to change, whether they were ready or not, and so, the story begins not with the flower itself, but with the choices that would follow. What would Sam do when he discovered the true meaning of the flower? What would Lila do if he never understood? The answers were uncertain, but they were about to find out. The sun rose the next morning, casting a soft light over the desert. Sam woke up to the familiar sounds of the wilderness. His horse was grazing nearby, and the fire had long since burned out, leaving only a few glowing embers. The flower, still where he had placed it, seemed to catch the early morning light in a way that made it look even more beautiful. Sam stared at it for a moment, still unsure of what had drawn him to pick it the day before. There was something about it that felt significant, though he couldn't place exactly why. He decided to pack up his camp and continue his journey. His life as a cowboy was never predictable. Every day brought a new challenge, a new landscape to traverse, or a new person to meet. This journey was no different, though today Sam felt a strange sense of anticipation. He wasn't sure if it was the flower or the thoughts of the Apache girl that lingered in his mind. But something felt different. As he packed his belongings, Sam thought back to the girl he had seen watching him the day before. She had seemed so calm, so confident, unlike anyone he had encountered before. Most people he met were either scared of him or eager to strike a deal, but this girl had something different about her. Her gaze had been steady and curious, as though she knew something he didn't. Sam mounted his horse and rode off, heading towards the horizon. The open plains stretched out before him, a never-ending sea of brown and green. His mind wandered back to the flower, and he realized that he hadn't really thought much about what it meant to her. It wasn't just any flower. It had been given to him by her, and that in itself was significant. Sam felt a pang of regret, wishing he had asked her more about it or at least understood the gesture. Later that afternoon, Sam decided to rest near a small stream. The cool water was refreshing, and he let his horse drink from it while he stretched out on the ground. He took the flower from his coat and looked at it again. This time he noticed how it was more than just a simple plant. There was something delicate about it, something that spoke of a deeper connection to the land and its people. He felt as though he had taken something precious, something that he didn't fully understand. As Sam sat by the stream, Lila was close by, hidden among the trees. She had followed him for miles, unsure of what to do. Her heart was filled with a mixture of emotions, hope, fear, and a quiet longing. She had always been taught to respect the customs of her people, but now she found herself in a position she never expected. She had given the flower, but Sam had not yet returned it to her, nor had he come to understand what it meant. Lila's mind raced with questions. Should she approach him again? Should she explain everything? Or wait for him to make the first move? She had never felt this kind of uncertainty before. She had always been in control of her emotions, but Sam's presence had turned everything upside down. She had been raised to honor her people's ways, but her heart told her that something about Sam was different. Sam, on the other hand, was beginning to feel the weight of the situation. He had always prided himself on being straightforward and honest, but this felt different. It wasn't just a matter of right or wrong, good or bad, it was something deeper, something tied to the land and the people who lived on it. He looked at the flower once more and decided he couldn't just leave things as they were. He needed to understand. As the evening drew near, Sam decided to ride back in the direction he had come from, hoping to find the girl again. The thought of her had been haunting him all day. He wasn't sure what he would say, but he knew he had to do something. He had never been one for words, but something about her had stirred something inside him, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. Lila, still hidden nearby, saw Sam riding toward her. Her heart skipped a beat. She had been preparing herself for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt a rush of emotions. What if he didn't understand? What if he rejected her or her people's ways? What if he didn't want anything to do with her? The possibilities seemed endless, and each one was more terrifying than the last. Sam stopped a few feet away from Lila, his eyes searching for hers. He didn't know what to say at first, but the words came out eventually. "I've been thinking about the flower," he said, his voice steady but unsure. "I didn't know what it meant at the time, but now I realize it was important." Lila's heart raced as she looked at him, her eyes softening. "You took it," she said quietly. "It is a sign. A sign that I was ready to offer something more." "A proposal?" Sam blinked in surprise. "A proposal?" He hadn't understood the gravity of the gesture, but now that she explained it, he realized what it had meant. He had taken something from her, something deeply personal, and he hadn't even known it. But it wasn't too late to make things right. "I didn't know," Sam said, his voice sincere. "I didn't understand what it meant. But now I do." He paused, taking a step closer. "I respect your traditions, Lila. I may not know much about them, but I can see how much they mean to you. And I think I'd like to understand them better." Lila was quiet for a moment, her heart swelling with emotions she hadn't expected. She had been nervous about his response, unsure of how he would take the news. But his words, simple as they were, gave her hope. He wasn't rejecting her or her customs. He was willing to learn, willing to understand. "I didn't mean to put this on you," Lila said, her voice trembling slightly. "But when I gave you the flower, I was offering a part of myself. It's not just a flower, it's a symbol of something much deeper. A connection. A proposal to join our lives in a way that honors both our worlds." Sam nodded, taking in her words. He had spent his whole life on the fringes of society, never really understanding the deeper connections people had with one another. But now, standing here with Lila, he felt something stirring within him. There was a bond between them, something he couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about the flower. It was about the way she made him feel, the way she saw the world, and the way he was starting to see it too. "I'm not sure where this will go," Sam said softly, his gaze meeting hers. "But I'm willing to find out." Lila smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. She didn't expect him to have all the answers. They both had their own paths to walk, but perhaps they could walk them together. It was a beginning, a chance to bridge two worlds that had never really touched before. As the sun set behind them, Sam and Lila stood together, the desert stretching out before them, full of possibility. They didn't know what the future held, but for the first time they both felt ready to face it together.